Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
We are reading, where are we reading? I have to find where we're reading. Story of Narada Muni as he explains it to Vyasadeva. And I did not take note of that chapter, but I more or less think I know where we left off. 5th chapter, 1st canto. Let's find it. Does anyone remember?
The first few read, it was 1:5:24. So
Oh, okay. So we'll start 1:5:25.
maybe 6.
All right. And we did 2 verses. Let's do 26. Did we do 26? Do you remember? O Vyasadeva, in that association and by the mercy of those great Vedantists, I could hear them describe the attractive activities of Lord Krishna. And thus, as I listened attentively, my taste for hearing of the personality of Godhead increased at every step. Lord Sri Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead, is attractive not only in his personal feature, but also in his transcendental activities. It is so because the absolute is absolute by his name, fame, form, pastimes, entourage, paraphernalia. In other words, everything Krishna does is attractive. Like, some people, they're attractive in some areas, but not everything, right? You're good at this, not good at that. So you may like somebody for certain reasons. I think we should close that door. You may like somebody for certain reasons, but some things you don't like. But everything about Krishna is Satchidananda. Everything. So it's all good. The Lord descends to the material world out of his causeless mercy and displays his various transcendental pastimes as a human being, so that human beings, being attracted towards him, become able to go back to Godhead. Men are naturally apt to hear histories and narrations of various personalities performing mundane activities without knowing that by such association one simply wastes valuable time and also becomes addicted to the 3 qualities of material nature. That's like I was saying the other day, that, just the time you spend in Krishna consciousness is what makes all the difference. Can you you have Chaitanya Leela's Chaitanya Dasi, I mean. You have her WhatsApp? Because Radha Priya was supposed to tell everybody that we're having class at 8 o'clock on Zoom, but it doesn't seem like she did because there's nobody. Nobody loves me. There's nobody. I don't think she told anybody because nobody came yesterday. So she could send a message. We're on Facebook and Zoom right now. Men are naturally apt to hear histories and narrations of various personalities performing mundane activities, without knowing that by such association one simply wastes valuable time and also becomes addicted to the three qualities of mundane nature. So it's like whatever you talk about, that's going to direct your consciousness. So it's kind of like, it's kind of almost like we're innocent. You know, you just talk about one thing, your mind goes there. Talk about another thing, your mind goes there. Talk about another thing, it goes up. Talk about another thing, it goes down. Just by talking and hearing, you know. And we're just sitting there getting pushed around. So, you know, you hear about Krishna, you just get pushed up. And, you know, you're just sitting here and you're listening and you get pushed up. And you can sit here and listen to anything and get pushed anywhere, that whatever that knowledge is going to take you. It's like pretty simple, right? Instead of wasting time, one can get spiritual success by turning his attention to the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. By hearing the narration of the pastimes of the Lord, one contacts directly the personality of Godhead. And, as explained before, when one hears about the personality of Godhead, all accumulated sins of the mundane creature are cleared from within. That's easy. You sit here, you hear Bhagavatam, your sins are cleared away. Thus, being cleared of all sins, the hearer gradually becomes liberated from mundane association and becomes attracted to the features of the Lord. Narada Muni has just explained this by his personal experience. In other words, he's saying, I heard from the sages and then I became attracted. Like I wasn't attracted. I heard, I got purified. Now I'm attracted. Because you can't be attracted to Krishna if you're not purified. Because the mundane material senses are not attracted to Krishna. So it's like one time there was this devotee and I, we used to meet people and then we'd go to their homes, even if it was just like one person. If we thought they were sufficiently interested in Krishna consciousness, in the evening we would just go and hang out with them. So there was a girl who was the sister of a devotee, and as far as I remember, that devotee didn't live in that city, and he wanted us to visit her, and she was happy to have us. And we went there and we made halava and she tasted and said, this tastes horrible. I think she smoked. I don't know what else she did. Yeah. That was the first person I ever met that didn't like halava, but she didn't like it. So as the senses become purified, they become attracted to the transcendental. If they're not purified, they won't be attracted to the transcendental. And so this is basically what Narada is saying. You know, I heard, I got purified. Then it's like I became addicted, so to speak, to hearing because it became attractive. Wow. I think she just probably opened it up and knocked me off. How dare she do that? That's what it looks like happened. I have to log in another way. Yeah.
Please forgive me. I was trying to log in.
No, that's okay. We'll have every day this time class, as far as I know. I'm already broadcasting on. I'm already broadcasting on Facebook. Okay.
I was listening in on Facebook, so
Yeah. Oh, you already heard. Okay. So Thus, being cleared of all sins, the hearer gradually becomes liberated from mundane association and becomes attracted to the features of the Lord. Narada Muni has just explained this by his personal experience. The whole idea is that simply by hearing about the Lord's pastimes, one can become one of the associates of the Lord. Narada Muni has eternal life, unlimited knowledge, and unfathomed bliss. And he can travel all over the material and spiritual worlds without restriction. One can attain to the highest perfection of life simply by attentive hearing of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord from the right sources. As Sri Narada has heard from the pure devotee, Bhaktivedantas, in his previous life. This process of hearing in the association of the devotees is especially recommended in this age of Kali, quarrel. So we see from Prabhupada's example, right, that what did he do? He had class every day, every morning. And when I first joined, we had class every morning and every evening. And then after evening class, we had Krishna book. So, and then also, when Prabhupada came out with the Nectar of Devotion, he said we should read that every day. So some temples would have Nectar of Devotion, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna book every evening. But we would go out on Harinam Sankirtan every day, and we'd bring our lunch. And then after lunch or before lunch, we would read Nectar of Devotion. So I'd have Bhagavatam, Nectar of Devotion, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna every day, except maybe Sunday. That was just what we did. And we, most of the verses we learned is because verses were recited in class and we would hear them every day. And you just started learning verses because nobody knew that many verses, so everybody quoted the same verses, so you hear the same verses in every class. Hare Krishna. Okay, let's go to the next verse. This is first canto, chapter 5, text 27. It's Narada Muni explaining his transformation. It's kind of like, Prabhu, how did you become a devotee? Is in Vyasadev's, Narada, how did you become a devotee? This is basically what he's asking, right? How did you go from non-devotee to devotee? What happened? It was the pakora. Once I ate that pakora, my material life was finished. I couldn't focus on my studies. All my friends deserted me. It was that pakora. That was it. O great sage, as soon as I got a taste for the personality of Godhead, my attention to hear of the Lord was unflinching. And as my taste developed, I could realize that it was only in my ignorance that I had accepted gross and subtle coverings. For both the Lord and I are transcendental. The first time you realized, at least intellectually, you're not the body. It's a big thing, isn't it? It's like that. That's the game. They say in English, something is alters something in your life. They say it's a game changer. Get this app. It's a game changer. Your whole life will get better. Realizing you're not the body. It's a game changer, isn't it? Yeah. I'm eternal. I'm not born. I don't die. It's not my first life. That's a game changer, like a pretty big one, isn't it? Because if that's true, everything's changed. What am I doing? I'm in ignorance, wasting my life. Why am I doing this? Ignorance in material existence is compared to darkness, and in all Vedic literatures, the personality of God is compared to the sun. Wherever there is light, there cannot be darkness. Hearing of the Lord's pastimes is itself transcendental association with the Lord, because there is no difference between the Lord and his transcendental pastimes. You know the motto for Back to Godhead? Godhead is light, Where there's light, there can be no darkness. Something, isn't it? You have a BTG here? Godhead is light, nescience is darkness. Where there's, anyway. Something like that. Krishna Surya Sam. Krishna is like the sun. Maya Haya Andakar. Maya is like darkness. Taha Krishna Kahan Mayadika. Where there's Krishna, there's no Maya. Pretty simple, right? Hearing of the Lord's pastimes is transcendental association with the Lord, because there is no difference between the Lord and his transcendental pastimes. To become associated with the supreme light is to dissipate all ignorance. By ignorance only, the conditioned soul wrongly thinks that both he and the Lord are products of material nature. This was all written by Prabhupada in Vrindavan. This is what we're reading now, like way before ISKCON. And I'm listening to a lecture series by Birbinda Sarup that he gave probably in 1989 about the history of ISKCON. And he said something very interesting. He said that if you, according to him, his realization is if you study the first canto of Bhagavatam, you could see Prabhupada was writing for leaders. Like that was his intention, that leaders will read this and the leaders will change the world. And when he came to America, the books that he was written for ended up in the hands of hippies, not leaders. That's all he could get. That's all that came to him. So as we're reading this, it's interesting to think, well, he's directing this towards the movers and shakers of the world, who he felt if they became Krishna conscious, then the masses would follow. But that didn't happen. Take what you can get. And then he's describing all these, you think, like ISKCON has problems now. We have some huge problems. We had some huge problems, and he's describing those problems, and the Prabhupada had to go through all this anxiety because of us. Just fighting and doing fanatical and immature. But in fact, the personality of Godhead and the living entities are transcendental. They have nothing to do with material nature. When ignorance is removed and is perfectly realized that there is nothing existing without the personality of Godhead, then nescience is removed. Since the gross and subtle bodies are emanations from the personality of Godhead, the knowledge of light permits one to engage both of them in the service of the Lord. So we can engage ignorance. The gross body should be engaged in acts of rendering service to the Lord. And this is funny, the gross body, because in English, when we say something is gross, we mean it's like grotesque. It's like yuck. Your body's gross. It smells bad. Like that. But when Prabhupada means a gross body, he means the body made of 5 elements. Not like your body's gross. As opposed to subtle, the gross and subtle body. Somebody could misunderstand, right? Since the gross and subtle bodies are emanations from Krishna, the knowledge of light permits one to engage both of them in the service of the Lord. The gross body should be engaged in acts of rendering service to the Lord, as in bringing water, cleansing the temple, or making obeisance, etc. Isn't that a typo? As in bringing water, cleansing the temple, or making obeisance, etc. Shouldn't the or be removed? Because you have etc. As in bringing water, cleansing the temple, making obeisances, etc. Anyway. Call up the BBT right now. The path of Archana, or worshiping the Lord in the temple, involves engaging one's gross body in the service of the Lord. So you can give the Sunday feast and say, everyone, engage your gross body. Hare Krishna. That must be an old British way of like. Engage your gross body. We take it for granted, but what would people think when they hear that? You're saying I'm gross. Similarly, the subtle mind should be engaged in hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, thinking about them, chanting His name, etc. All such activities are transcendental. None of the gross or subtle senses should otherwise be engaged. Such realization of transcendental activities is made possible by many, many years of apprenticeship in the devotional service. But simple attraction of love for the personality of Godhead, as it was developed in Narada Muni, by hearing is highly effective. In other words, Prabhupada's saying, to go from zero to prema, it's a long road, but hearing makes it very quick. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how much time do you spend hearing things that do not help your Krishna consciousness? And what goes in these ear holes goes right here and affects it, and right here. So be careful. We may have to learn things and hear so many things. That's, for our service, for our work, for our own, education in whatever way. But, we need to always sufficiently hear about Krishna as well. Okay. Go to the next page. Thus, during 2 seasons, the rainy season and autumn, I had the opportunity to hear these great-souled sages. Wow, great-souled sages. Sounds like the name of a band. The great-souled sages. The great souls. Let's see what the Sanskrit is. You think it's Mahatma? What do you think?
Mahatmas.
The great-souled sages. Yep, it is. Itam Sharat. We'll just go to the word here. Mahatmabi. Great souls. Atmabi. Mahat.
Big soul.
Yeah.
Big, great.
But these are great souled. These are not great souls, they're great souled. These are not Mahatmas, they're Mahatmabi. Muni Bir Mahatmabi. So Muni Bir is a sage. The great souled sages. There you go. The Muni Bir Mahatmabi, the Muni Bir Mahatmabirs, the new band. Should we call that our new band? Muni Bir Mahatmabir. The great souled sages are performing tonight. I had the opportunity to hear these great souled sages constantly chant the unadulterated glories of the Lord, Hari. As the flow of my devotional service began, the coverings of the modes of passion and ignorance vanished. In my experience of teaching Krishna consciousness over the years, so I always find it so interesting that when we talk about Krishna consciousness, you just go to university and some people come and they've never come before. People come and listen. It's so obvious to see that human life is meant for talking about these things because people get stimulated when they hear it. Some people get disturbed and they argue, but it's all philosophical. It's like human beings, that's their nature. They have this intellect to try to grasp something deeper. And our job is just present it to people. And we can't do anything other than present it, right? That's all we can do. Yes? So we present it. That's all we can do. But when they hear it, what happens? Magic. possibly magic will happen. And the better we can explain it, the more clearly we can explain it, the more it makes sense to people, the more they understand, the better for them. And then if you're teaching Krishna consciousness over the years, naturally, in the process of teaching, you start thinking, we should have learned all this when we were 5 years old. You ever have that one? You're like, you're giving class, you're saying something, it's like, wait a minute, every 5-year-old should know this. When I'm speaking to adults and they've never heard this before. It's a problem. So, then the challenge we have is we're speaking to adults who have heard everything other than this. And so now it's like a jungle in there. And you kind of have to cut through and cut things out that they heard that, no, take that out, take that out. It's more difficult. Transcendental loving service for the Supreme Lord is the natural inclination of every living being. The instinct is dormant in everyone, but due to the association of material nature, the modes of passion and ignorance have covered this instinct from time immemorial. Time immemorial means pretty much the beginning of time, which doesn't have a beginning. Did that confuse you?
Yes. No, it's endless. Okay.
From time immemorial. So you could say, well, it's so long you can't remember, but it's actually forever. We say, I had a long day today, but in the light of forever, your day wasn't long. It was like, that's it. If by the grace of the Lord and the great-souled devotees of the Lord, a living being becomes fortunate enough to associate with the unadulterated devotees of the Lord, and thus gets a chance to hear the unadulterated and thus gets a chance to hear the unadulterated glories of the Lord. Certainly, the dormant instinct of devotional service is at once awakened, and the flow of devotional service takes place like the flow of a river. As the river flows on till she reaches the sea, similarly, pure devotional service flows by the association of pure devotees till it reaches the ultimate goal, namely, transcendental love of God. Such a flow of devotional service cannot stop. On the contrary, it increases more and more without limitation. The flow of devotional service is so potent that any onlooker also becomes liberated from the influence of the modes of passion and ignorance. Wow. Thus, two qualities of nature are thus removed. In other words, passion and ignorance. And this living being becomes liberated, being situated in his original position. This is interesting. When you see another devotee do devotional service, you get affected. Infected, affected, inspired, purified. Yeah? Have you ever seen that? Like, I think one of you said, Hanumak Prasad Swami, he gets up every day, no matter what, like 1:30. That's inspiring, right? To hear. Like, I think I'm getting up early at 4 or whatever. I sleep 6 hours, I think. That's not even, most people sleep 8. I'm only sleeping 6. I'm a sage. Then you hear that, oh, Maharaj is getting up at 1:30. And I don't think he's going to bed at he would have to go to bed at 7:30 to get 6 hours, right? He's probably not going to bed. Maybe he is, I don't know. But you just hearing about another devotee's devotional service, if it's better than ours, if it's more austere than ours, if it's more enlightened, it's more enthusiastic, we can get very inspired. And also seeing, how devotees doing something. Sometimes I see devotees, they're doing some service. They're very meticulous. They're doing it like, wow. And then I think, yes, what I learned when I was a young devotee, one of the first things is this is for Krishna. You're doing this for Krishna. You have to do it as best you can do it. This is Krishna's room. You have to keep it clean. This is Krishna's car. You have to take care of it. So sometimes I'll see a devotee and they're just like meticulous in their service, and I'll think, wow. Because they're doing this for Krishna, they're doing it with such care and attention. More care and attention than I do my service. I need to get inspired. But it doesn't mean it has to be some big Mahabhagavat. It could be anyone. Yeah, and that's the power of Sangha. You get to see other people doing service. And then when you look at someone doing service, you always look at well, do I do it like that? Where am I? What can I learn? How can I benefit? This person's doing something I don't do, or they're doing what I do, they do it better, and then you get inspired. Of course, you could get depressed as well, thinking, but we should get inspired. Hopefully, we get inspired. What's the use? They're doing it so well, I quit. And not like that. Hopefully not. That would be counterproductive. I don't associate with devotees. Why? I just get depressed. They're all better than me. So it just makes me feel bad. Yeah. And so another point Prabhupada's making here is like the modes of nature, passion and ignorance. Like when you're in passion and ignorance, it's like it's a problem. It's like they just get in the way of bhakti, because passion and ignorance are just dulling our consciousness. Our consciousness in sattva guna is pretty pure. And so Krishna consciousness can just get in without difficulty. But in passion, ignorance, it's like going through layers of walls to try to get in. Huh? What'd you say? You've spoken to people, they can't understand anything. They're so much in the mode of ignorance. Right? But that's true for us also, sometimes. Okay. Verse 29. Are you ready? I was very much attached to the sages. I was gentle in behavior, and all my sins were eradicated in their service. In my heart, I had strong faith in them. I had subjugated the senses, and I was strictly following them with body and mind. So this is kind of like, here's the list of qualifications if you want to become a follower of the great souled sages. Gentle, in other words, not angry, resentful, this, that, and the next thing. Not committing sinful activities, had faith in them, and sense controlled. And I was following their orders. That's the formula. Can you do it? Anyway, that's how we're supposed to do it. These are the necessary qualifications of a prospective candidate who can expect to be elevated to the position of a pure, unadulterated devotee. Do you know the word devotee is a corrupted pronunciation of devotee? Did you know that? It's a French word, right? Devotee? Yes, that's how you pronounce it in French?
Yeah, but in French it's dévot, but masculine and dévote.
Oh, Devo. Devo, yeah. Yeah. So maybe it's coming from Latin or something. But the actual pronunciation is devotee. And Prabhupada pronounced it devotee. But like if you say devotee, sometimes people are like, what? But I think that pronunciation is becoming more popular now, because I even see other movements, like devotional movements, not ISKCON, not Gaudiya Math, but others, they're saying devotees. Because that's the word we brought in, but it's actually devotee. A pure, unadulterated devotee. Sounds French to me, but anyway. Such a candidate must always seek the association of pure devotees. One should not be misled by a pseudo-devotee. He himself must be plain and gentle to receive the instructions of such a pure devotee. You know, in other words, Prabhupada's saying, if you want to benefit from the association of pure devotees, you have to be sincere. At least you have to try. You can't, you're trying to be a pure devotee yourself. Plain and gentle. That's what Prabhupada's saying. By plain and gentle, he means non-duplicitous. A pure devotee is completely surrendered, a completely surrendered soul unto the personality of Godhead. He knows the personality of Godhead as the supreme proprietor of all others as his servitors. And by the association of pure devotees, one can get rid of all sins accumulated by mundane association. The neophyte devotee must faithfully serve the pure devotee, and he should be very much obedient and strictly follow the instructions. These are the signs of a devotee who is determined to achieve success even in the existing duration of life. So this story in Bhagavatam is nice for us because, if you want to be Krishna conscious, you want to follow what people who are Krishna conscious did, right? It's like, they say, if you want to become successful at something, find somebody in that field who's successful, take them out for lunch and pick their brain, basically. Right? That's what they say. Like, you don't have to spend 10 years trying to figure it out. This person already did it, so just ask them. Right? So that's kind of what's going on here. And all throughout the Bhagavatam, there's stories of sages. And basically the stories are saying, this is how to do it. If you want to do it, like we sometimes think, oh, I'll do it this way, I'll do it that way. No, but, just do it the way the people who succeeded did it, because that's obvious how to do it. So that's one of the things we're learning from this story. And Prabhupada picks up on it right away in the purport. He says, this is, if you want to be Krishna conscious, if you want to be a disciple, this is how to do it, just like he did it. Control yourself. Don't be duplicitous. Don't try to cheat. What else? Faith. Control your senses. Be gentle. What they tell you to do, just do it. You'll be good. It works. That's the idea. Have you noticed that one of the obstacles to pure devotional service is rationalization? So like we'll read something. Yeah, well, that was Narada Muni, this is transcendental, and you can't expect me, to be sense-controlled and gentle like that. That's not how I was, it's like we have excuses. Isn't it? Yes. It's like you have this example, here's the story, you're making excuses, this, the whole purpose of the story is to follow it. Not like, who can make the best excuses not to do what Narada Muni did? You all raise your hand. How about this excuse? Not good enough. How about this? Oh, it's not bad. Anyone got a better excuse? It's like, why do you want an excuse? What's the point? Here's how to do it. But Prabhupada, can't we take a shortcut and not do that? Isn't there another way, easier? Do we have to? Do we actually have to be pure? Can't we do it some other way? That's what we're saying. Right? Isn't it? Prabhu, can I be Krishna conscious without being Krishna conscious? Could you show me how to do that? Could I just not follow anything and be Krishna conscious? Do you have a way that I could do that? Because that would really help me a lot, because I'm very full. You don't need Bhagavatam, you just put it on the shelf and or give it away. Why would you need it, So, and then And then from Prabhupada explained many times, it's like what you think this is difficult, but it's not. It's just you have to compare it to what people did in other ages. Like we compare it to our past and we think, well, according to how I was raised, this is difficult. But if you go a little further past and you say, well, according to what was required to be Krishna conscious in other times, what you're doing is pretty light. It's lightweight, it's like discounted, heavily discounted. It's like Special Olympics bhakti. It's like for handicapped people. And we think, oh, it's so hard. Yeah, do we have to do this? I mean, come on, get real, we're all Kali Yugaites and, so we're trying to like reduce it. But the point is, you can't reduce it. You can reduce it to the point it doesn't work. So then what's the point? Can I get good grades and not go to class? You can try. Good luck. See what happens. And then you fail your test. Well, that's what happens when you don't go to class and you don't study. You fail. So, do we have to do all these things to be Krishna conscious? Couldn't we just eat pakoras? Wouldn't that be enough? No, you have to do these things. And the other interesting thing is you know, we all have experience. You know about procrastination, right? Well, whatever you're procrastinating doing, you have to do it eventually anyway, right? Because it's like that's the thing you have to do to get whatever it is you want to get. So if you procrastinate, it doesn't mean you can go around it. You still have to do it, right? So if you have this rationalization, well, can't we do this? Why do we have to do that? No, you have to do these things. So you can procrastinate, you can hem and haw, I don't want to do it. So many things, but all you're doing is wasting time because this is the process. So you can try to, create your own idea and rationalize and, well, Prabhupada understood we were fallen and this and that. Yeah, he did, but he gave us a process for fallen people. So in this argument, he understood we're fallen, therefore we don't have to do this. No, he understood we're fallen, therefore this is what he gave us. It's for fallen people. So we have it backwards. We think it's so hard, and Prabhupada's thinking, I made it easy, and you think it's hard. So, a few things. And that's why, often I say, we should be kind, we should be forgiving, and all these things, because this is like, how can you become a pure devotee if you're, proud and angry and it's like, doesn't work. It's like, look what he's saying. I was gentle, I was controlled, I followed their instructions, I had faith. Okay, everyone, hello, it's like, this is how you get there, I'm leaving footprints, you want to follow? I don't know, it's too hard. All right. Well, you can stay here and take birth again. But eventually, if you want to get there, you have to follow these footprints. So you can hem and haw and make excuses, but you someday, this is the road that gets there, There's a lot of traffic on it, whatever, but it's the only road. So you have to take it. But you get Krishna. So that's pretty good. So why don't we see if you have any comments or questions or disagreements or arguments or doubts or complaints? Yes?
Thank you very much for that. I have a question. Sometimes I hear, not sometimes, but last time, it's quite a long time, I'm listening to one Maharaj. He was giving this, he was reading during this COVID period, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavata, and there are a lot of blessings. The one who
here.
story,
Yeah.
and he will be like associates with the Lord and a lot of blessings. And I'm thinking nothing changes. I'm listening them second time already, but like nothing changes. What's wrong? I'm trying to solve. I'm trying to whatever. Father saying.
We were talking about that this morning on our walk. Like It's kind of the question is, I'm doing everything according to the book and I'm still a mess. Like, am I doing something wrong? And the answer is no. It's just we became a mess and there's a lot to, it's going to take time. And all we can do is continue doing what we're doing. And we are getting purified. We must be getting purified and we're getting blessings, but maybe not as many blessings. Maybe they're not noticeable to us. They might be more noticeable to other people. And we're expecting fireworks. Like I'm going to read this story. At the end of this story, it's like, that's it, All anarthas, all unwanted desires exploded and everything is great. But, as I was saying the other night, I think I was saying, sometimes we don't notice the effectiveness until we stop doing it. Like it's just like the fact that you're a devotee and going on means it is effective, right? That's one proof, right? Otherwise we would stop. We'd be out there rocking and rolling, and just doing our thing. So the fact that we're here means it is working. It's just not working as fast as we want. Like when you have a dirty pot, burnt rice, you ever try to clean a pot that you burnt the rice? Just like, and after like 5 minutes, it's like, this is useless. This is, I expected the pot was going to be clean in a minute. No, well, you burnt rice pretty badly. So, thank you. So, can I get warm?
Oh, yeah.
Doctor's orders. Yeah. There's nothing else we can do. We have to keep doing it because it's like I had a little pre-cancer removed from my back, and they cut like this much of, maybe like that wide, right? And then they stitched it up. And because it's on my back, because I move like that, the stitches came out, and I didn't notice. So I went back to the doctor, and he said, we can't stitch it, it's too late, right? And so last night, Masika was spraying some disinfectant on it. I don't know if you call it disinfectant. Don't want to scare anybody, but what's that stuff? Starts with a D. Anyway, some spray. Disinfectant is what you clean the floor with. Anyway, it was spraying on it. And we're looking at it. He took a picture and I'm looking at it. And I said, well, every day when you change it, just make sure it doesn't get any worse. Because if it doesn't get worse, that means we're okay. So I think a lot of times it's like that. I'm hearing and chanting and like that. Well, at least I didn't get any worse today, isn't it? Because if I stop, I'll get worse, right? Just has to be warm, not hot. So I think that's that's definitely a factor for sure, isn't it? Like, I'm hearing no fireworks, nothing, but I'm still here. I'm still here because I'm hearing and I'm chanting. I didn't see Krishna today in my japa. I didn't faint. I wasn't crying and all that. But you're here for class. You didn't run away. So it's working. Thank you.
And we don't see the changes day after day because it's very small and very slow. But when we look back last year, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, we see the difference.
Mm-hmm.
We see that actually something changed. And
It's true. It's true. It's like the example, a kid's growing. You don't see the kid growing. The people who, like the relatives who don't live, they come back, oh, you're so big. And you're like, really? It's big? I didn't notice. Or people, I'll come with my daughter. Sometimes people haven't seen her since she was like 7. And they're like, oh my God. 23. You know, it's like, I didn't notice anything. But I think it's obvious. I would always say, even as a young devotee, I would always say, we're all getting Krishna's mercy, and the proof is we're here. We're able to like follow Krishna consciousness. Maybe imperfectly, but at least follow, basically. How could you do that without Krishna's mercy? It's pretty much impossible. Maybe if you're born in a Brahmin family or something, and that's how you grew up, and that's just normal for you. But we didn't grow up that way. So the fact that we can have some semblance of a sattvic life and be able to chant our rounds and follow principles, that's pretty good. That means it's working, right? It's just that I want love of Krishna and I want it right now. It's like, well, you know, you did do a few bad things in the past 10 zillion lifetimes, so there is a lot of like burnt rice in that pot. It is going to take time. We burnt every life, we burnt rice on that pot. And now we're thinking, why does it take so long to clean? So, well, it's a lot of burnt rice. You ever try to clean burnt rice? Yeah, it's like, yeah, it takes time. It's like a 10, 15-minute job, right? With still wool. Yeah. And you should soak, it's better to soak it overnight, but that doesn't even help that much. It's just it's burnt rice. The name of this class is entitled Burnt Rice. Cleaning a pot with burnt rice is not fast. Yeah. Now, what's also worth mentioning, I've mentioned this before, like when Prabhupada was interacting with us, he never gave us the impression that we're hopeless. You know, it's nice to see you all this year. It doesn't look like you're making any advancement, so I'm not coming back next year. He didn't say that. It was always like he's saying in this purport, like here, chant, you're getting purified. I can see you're all very happy. You know, if Prabhupada saw we were happy, he didn't have like an instrument to calculate how much we advanced from last year. His calculation was just, we're enthusiastic and happy. And it was like, okay, that's fine. So he wasn't, you know, like Prabhupada knew how long it's going to take. We didn't know, he knew. So he wasn't discouraged. Oh, you're all useless. I'm preaching and, you know, what can you do? You know, hardly you can do anything. And so it's not working. He didn't see it that way. It's like, oh, you're all doing well. I can see. Things are going on nicely. The movement's expanding. It works. So he never told us, well, I can see, you know, after 10 years of preaching that this process doesn't work on Americans, so I'm never coming back. It was never like that. It was always like, this process works. So I think we have to see it like that. As long as the wound's not getting worse, eventually it's going to get better. It has to, right? So as long as we're not going down, even if you say I'm just maintaining, but you really can't maintain. You rather have to go up or down. So if you feel you're not going down, you must be going up. It's just so gradual you don't notice it, but over 100 years, you know, you end up there. What do you think? Yeah, maybe. You just want it faster. Well, we have to, I think the best way, at least for me, the way I look at this is, I am so dirty. There's so much to clean. It's unreasonable to think it's going to happen fast. It's just like, you know, I've been a devotee so many years and still I'm dealing with this, that, and the next thing. Yeah, because it's deeply ingrained. I mean, like, who ingrained it? We did. So, like, who are we going to blame? Krishna, how come you don't love me and I'm not a pure devotee in 3 days? You know, how come on my first round I didn't, you know, faint? You know, well, you did a lot of stuff in the past. There's, you know, it's like, this is going to take some time. So when you understand that, it's like, but even in spite of that, I can do the process. That's good. And it'll work. It'll take time. The other thing is, what else you're going to do? It's taking too long, I quit. But then now you quit, so then nothing happens. So it's a paradox. I quit, it's taking too long. Well, when you quit, nothing happens. So what doesn't make sense, right? I give up, it's too slow. You know that story, Mukunda being blessed by Mahaprabhu, that he would get Mahaprabhu's mercy in 1,000,000 lives, something like that. It's such a nice story. It's so exemplary for us. Mukunda, everyone's getting Mahaprabhu's mercy right there. And Mukunda, Mahaprabhu, what about Mukunda? Not for 1,000,000 lives. That's kind of depressing. And Mukunda's dancing. So in the light of eternity, 1,000,000 lives is just a flash in the pan. It's not much, right? So he was happy and saying, how come you're so happy? 1,000,000 lives. He says, well, at least after 1,000,000, I get the mercy. So that's good. Good enough for me. So you think about it, if I have to take 1,000,000 lifetimes, but I get Krishna prema and eternally live with Krishna, so 1,000,000 lifetimes is nothing, and in eternity is like what? And what to speak of this life, and in the context of eternity, this is like takes so long. This life won't even register, and when you go back to Godhead, like I always say, I don't know if it happens like this, but I always imagine, you wake up from a dream, but you can't remember what it was. And you're just like, oh, I don't know, some dream, something. And you're trying to remember, and it's like, oh, I think it was a bad dream, but you can't. So you just wake up. So I kind of picture it like you leave your body and you're back in Braj, and you kind of like wake up and did I go somewhere? Was there something? Did I miss something? And it's like, but you don't know what it is, and it's like, so that this whole journey in the material world is like, was something? What happened? Where was I? Oh, whatever. Isn't it said? Have you heard that it said? It's like you're there, and it's like you're always there. It's like you're eternally liberated, right? So it's like eternally liberated, it's like you're always there, even if you weren't. Yes?
It seems like from these verses emphasized the cessation of pure devotees a lot. Maybe to progress in spiritual.
Yeah, right.
Maybe you can elaborate on this.
Maybe I can tell you where to find a pure devotee. In the mirror, you can find it. You can find the pure devotee in the mirror. When Prabhupada talks about pure devotees and liberated souls and all this, then we think, well, he's talking about Mahabhagavats and, or how many Mahabhagavats are around and where do we find them? And like, is my guru a pure devotee? Is he a Mahabhagavat? Is he like on the upper levels of Madhyam, the middle? Like, where is he? Is he a lower level Maha? And so, like, those classifications are given for various reasons, but not for us to go around analyzing. Is he a Mahabhagavat? Because Prabhupada says a pure devotee is one who is purely following his guru, which means you don't have to be a pure devotee to be a pure devotee, so to speak. It's like, okay, I say, Rasik Mangala, he's a pure devotee. He's saying, I'm not a pure devotee. I'm a rascal. And say, well, do you follow this order, this order, this? Yes, yes, yes. So you checked all the boxes. You're doing what Prabhupada wanted. Yes, yes. You're doing what your guru wanted. You're trying. You're sincere. Are you doing devotional service to make money, to become famous? No, I'm doing it to please Krishna. It's like, you checked all the boxes. You're a pure devotee. By that definition. And therefore, if we associate with you, we become pure. And the proof of that is, if that were not true, how could Krishna consciousness spread? Because we have one pure devotee, Prabhupada, on the planet. And no other pure devotees, and all the other non-pure devotees are going all over the world to giving their non-pure devotee association to all these people who could never become pure devotees because they are not pure devotees. But we see the opposite. All these people are joining the temple, they're becoming purified, and there's a bunch of new devotees around. But why? Because they're just following Prabhupada. So that's what Prabhupada means by pure devotee, one who's serving purely. Because if you define pure devotee as Mahabhagavat, yeah, then it's different. Then, okay, well, how many pure devotees we have? Well, that's debatable. How many pure devotees on the planet, Srila Prabhupada? How many disciples do I have? 1,000, Prabhupada. 1,000 pure devotees. So it's a different definition. He's not saying Mahabhagavat. He is equivalent to pure devotee, saying one who's purely following his guru, he's a pure devotee. And Prabhupada never represented himself as pure. He represented himself as one who's purely trying to follow his guru, not as a pure devotee. But he represented us as pure devotees because we're purely trying to follow him. And if we do that, we'll be successful. And everyone who comes will become pure. Otherwise, if we're going to wait for everyone to become pure devotee, then going to be waiting a long time by definition. And then if you artificially elevate someone to pure devotee status who's not above everyone else, who's not actually Mahabhagavat, that creates a problem also for everybody, for that devotee and everybody else, because now we're creating weird definitions of pure devotees that are not Prabhupada's definition. I mean, you can find those definitions in Shastra, of course, but that's not the definition that Prabhupada used. I was just listening this morning. There was a time in ISKCON where there was a rift between grihastas and sannyasis and brahmacharis. And so the brahmachari sannyasis were saying, well, no grihasta should be a temple president because they're grihastas, and grihastas are like not pure, compromised and so on. And then, so this argument's going on. It's obviously a stupid argument. And then it comes to Prabhupada, and they said, Prabhupada, so we're thinking only sannyasis can be gurus, not grihastas. And Prabhupada said, Ye Krishna tattva vedi, se guru hoy. Whoever knows Krishna become guru. It's not like if you're married or not. It has nothing to do with it. So sometimes, we make distinctions of what's pure and what isn't pure, but they're not based on, they're based on what we think Shastra is saying, but not based on the way Prabhupada's explaining it. But if you want to say, even Mahabhagavat, there are different definitions. And Prabhupada said, his only desire is to spread Krishna consciousness. That's one of the definitions. He's not envious. And the definition of not being envious, you have only desires to spread Krishna consciousness. Because if you're envious, why would you try to give people Krishna consciousness? Right? Keep it all for yourself. Let them go to hell. So, Prabhupada sometimes gives really broad definitions of things. And so if you go for the narrow definition, and say, there's no pure devotees in ISKCON. We just got to settle for, madhyam gurus and, hope for the best. And, maybe we need to go to Yamath. They have Mahabhagavats there or something, But, if that were true, Prabhupada would have said, well, I'm leaving this world and, you, my disciples, are not there yet, so just go to Yamath and take initiation there, because that's where the more advanced devotees are. And certainly the most advanced devotees were in Gaudiya Math when Prabhupada left. They weren't in ISKCON. But he never said go there. Because he felt like, well, my disciples purely follow me. That's perfect. Doesn't mean, if you hear from someone Gaudiya Math, it's not going to benefit you. But he saw there were two different organizations. They're not really working together, and we have our institution and we'll stay together, and you follow me, everything's good. That's when we don't follow, then we have problems. Hare Krishna. Is that all right, or you have a different idea?
Yeah, maybe I just want to specify, like in your example, if like about me, and people not joining and not becoming like inspired in Krishna consciousness by associating with me. But for example, when from you or other senior devotees, many people are joining and they get inspiration to
Yeah.
follow. And, so I was more like talking about like senior pure devotees.
Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be senior in that sense to inspire people. If you're enthusiastic and you're sincere, you'll inspire people. I've always found that enthusiasm is contagious. And if we're enthusiastic, people get inspired. You know, like Rati Manjari, she's enthusiastic about Harinam, right? So she's kind of reviving that, isn't she? The one, yeah. So the one enthusiastic person. Now you can say, well, she's older devotee, yeah, but younger devotees could have done it also. Hey, let's go out. Let's, to Yuga Dharma. Let's do it. So don't ever think you don't have the potency to inspire others. Of course, we have to inspire ourselves, but you can inspire others. And how long have you been a devotee? What? 17. So when I joined, the senior devotees were maybe 4 years, 3 or 4. And how old are you? 37. So when I joined, I think the oldest, well, there might have been 1 or 2 devotees like 32, 30, I was 19. So, it was like, that's a lot older than, when you're 19, someone's 30, that's like, it's a much different generation. And so the leaders were in their early 20s and devotees like 3-4 years. So I think one of the differences in the world of today is because we have all these older devotees, it makes us feel like, well, they should be the ones, like inspiring and inaugurating and so forth. One of the things that inspires me, other than the fact that we were all young and we did it, if you look at what soldiers have to do to fight, right? And who's in charge of them, the people in charge of them are like 24 years old, like the sergeants, 24, 20. They enlist when they're like 18, 19, and they're in a war, and this 24-year-old's in charge of people's lives, basically. And, having to deal with things way more difficult than we would ever have to deal with. And they're like 24. So, I was watching or something like live footage of the war, like when the Ukraine war came out, everybody was like, what's going on? And you're talking to these guys and they're all just in their early 20s. So, the Hare Krishna movement spread around the world, average temple president, less than 2 years, under 23 years old. When I joined, I was the average temple president under 22. Under 2 years in the movement and 22 or under. And so, we didn't have any thinking like we're not pure or this or that, or like we didn't, because we were the only ones to do it. So that if we made an excuse, it wouldn't happen. And Prabhupada's telling us to do it. So we didn't think we can't do it because he didn't say we couldn't. He said we could. So we had that, we weren't thinking, were we pure or not? We were just thinking, well, this process is pure. So if we do the pure process, it'll work. And the reason we were thinking that is because it was working. It wasn't a theory, it's that we were living through it. And people were becoming devotees. And it was like, okay, we get up at 4. And we chant our rounds. And so this new person's doing what we do. So as long as we were doing it, they'd all do it, right? So, maybe maybe I wasn't doing it in the most pure way, but the fact that I was doing it to please Prabhupada meant that whoever joined the temple, they would do it also. So you could say, I have a temple of pure devotees because we're following, right? Yes? Ah. So, I have a godbrother, Kalakanta Prabhu, and he's opening what's called Krishna houses. And so what he's doing is, as people join the Krishna house, new people, and they become devotees, after a year or two, he asks them, you want to go out and start another Krishna house? So it's all the Krishna houses are being run by people who just joined a few years before, because that's how we did it. And so he's just doing it how we did it with Prabhupada, just letting them go out. And, you can follow this schedule, you can give class, okay, go out. You can be an example, okay, do it. And it's working. Of course, it doesn't mean we can't mess things up. Certainly we can do that. But if you can be an example and if you can follow, then other people will do what you do. So whenever the leaders had problems, Prabhupada was really upset because everything depended on the leaders. So leaders, some leader would, run off with a woman or something, or take some money or whatever. He's so disappointed because he depended on them as to be examples. But when they were examples, he was so happy with them because everything was just spreading. And Prabhupada didn't know how successful this movement would be. It was way more successful than he thought, as far as we could tell. And so he really had to depend on his senior people because it was like he was too big to just depend on him. And so he was always, preaching, be pure, follow. If you follow, everything will be good. It'll all be successful. If you don't, it'll all fall apart. So, as long as we followed, things expanded. At the time Prabhupada left, you had temples that now have like 6 people that had 150 people, like that. You have temples, by 1975, 76, your average temples were like 50, 60 devotees. Your big temples were 150 to 350. I think New Vrindavan may have had 700 or something. Like I was San Diego was like 40, 50, something. LA 350. Where else was I? Vancouver, probably 40, 50. I mean, that was just like normal. And it was happening with us. How was it happening? Because we were following what Prabhupada said. The potency is in the instruction. So, the potency is not within us. The purity is not within us. The purity is in the instruction. And so if we follow that instruction purely, we can say we are pure, even though we're not. We can't, the reason we're not pure, we can fall down. But as long as we're following, then we are liberated. May not be liberated tomorrow, but I'm liberated now. And if I follow this, then it's effective. Otherwise, we couldn't have spread Krishna consciousness. It wouldn't have worked. Prabhupada would have come somewhere, devotees joined, and then he would have left and we all would have fallen down. But we have one another's association. I tell this story about 2 devotees were traveling together. They didn't like one another, but it was just there. Circumstantially, they had to be together, and they were fighting because one was in charge and the one who wasn't in charge didn't like the one who was in charge, and he wanted to be in charge. You've heard that story before, right? Yeah. Anyway, you're the temple president. I could do a better job. I don't like you. I don't want to follow you. So the devotee who wasn't in charge didn't want to follow the devotee who was in charge, and they're just fighting like all the time. And then they would do Sankirtan, and one devotee would get dropped off and then picked up later. I'll drop you off at 10 a.m., I'll pick you up tonight at 7. And sometimes you're asked to leave, it's a private property, a store or something, you have to move. And so you don't have cell phones, so you don't, if they're not there, you don't know where they are. Unless they call the temple, and then you can call the temple. But of course, no one answers the temple phone. But that was the only way you could know. Because I got kicked out of this spot, I'm over here, tell so-and-so when he calls in where I am. But if no one answers the phone, you can't find them. You don't know how to find them. I mean, you start driving around. So he came to pick up this devotee, and he wasn't where he dropped him off. And he started driving around, and he couldn't find him. And it went to like 10 o'clock at night. And you know what this devotee thought? He said, I hope I find this devotee because I don't want to be in this city alone because I don't trust myself, what I might do. Because of our past, what we did in our past, my past bad habits. I'm alone. And they finally met, and they kind of like realized how much they needed one another. It was nice. It's a nice story about how we need association. But, we're not pure devotees, but I needed that not pure devotee who's doing pure devotional service, because if he's not around, who knows what I'll do. Right? Isn't it? So that's how it worked. None of us are pure, but we're doing pure devotional service as long as we're purely following Prabhupada. And therefore, it has potency. And then when we stop doing that pure devotional service, what happens? We fall. No, sorry, Prabhu, you're not a pure devotee anymore. But I was a pure devotee yesterday. What happened? How could you become a non-pure devotee overnight? Yeah, it happens. By this definition, it happens, right? Pure devotee today, not a pure devotee tomorrow. That's like, where in the books does it say that? Well, in the fine print, between the lines, it says that, right? Doesn't it? Yeah. Hare Krishna. Okay, I think that's it. Anyone else have anything they'd like to tell us? Okay. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.